Welcome to Career Ambitions, the podcast for corporate professionals who are ready to stop waiting and take control of their careers. If you're tired of sending applications into the void, wondering why you're not getting interviews, and watching opportunities go to people who are no more qualified than you're in the right place, my friends. I'm Joanne Sparrow, former HR director turned career coach, and I've spent more than 2 decades sitting on the other side of the hiring table. That means I know exactly what hiring managers think and what they say behind closed doors. Join me on this episode of Career Ambitions, where I'm pulling back the curtains on the hiring process and unapologetically exposing the truths job seekers are never told to give you the strategy and confidence to move your career forward and land your dream job or promotion. Hello, and welcome back to Career Ambitions, the podcast for corporate professionals trying to land their dream jobs and achieve their career ambitions. Today we're talking about how to answer the question, tell me about yourself. We're going to talk about how to answer it without rambling, reciting your resume, or selling yourself short. It sounds like the easiest question in an interview. You know yourself and you know your career and you know what you've accomplished. But for many job seekers, it becomes one of the hardest questions to answer. They often start at the beginning of their career. They list every job they've ever held. They share personal details that aren't relevant to the job you're interviewing for, or they give vague, rehearsed responses that sound exactly like every other candidate. And so today, this is what I want you to understand. This is not an invitation to tell the interviewer your entire life story. It is the opportunity to shape how they see you for the rest of the interview. And how you answer it can make or break the opportunity for you. From my perspective as a former HR leader, tell me about yourself is not small talk. The interviewer is listening for several things. Can you communicate clearly? Do you understand the role you're interviewing for? Can you connect your experience to what the organization needs? Do you know what makes you valuable? Can you tell a compelling career story without rambling? Your answer to this question gives the interviewer their first real impression of how you think, communicate, and position yourself. It can establish confidence and credibility within the first 90 seconds. It can also create questions or concerns that follow you throughout the rest of the interview. The biggest mistake is treating this question like an autobiography. Candidates will often say, I graduated from university, then I started working at company X, Y, Z, and after that I moved into another organization. By the time they reach their current role, the interviewer has forgotten where the story even began. So your response should not be a chronological walk through your resume. They've seen your resume. They have already invited you in because they believe you are capable of doing the job. So your goal is to help them understand the professional behind the resume. A strong answer should communicate 3 things. Who you are professionally. Describe your professional identity. This is more powerful than simply stating your current job title. So instead of saying, I'm a communications manager, try saying something like, I'm a strategic communications leader who helps organizations navigate complex change, strengthen stakeholder trust, and translate business priorities into clear, engaging communications. One version gives your title. The other explains your value. Number 2, the problems you know how to solve. Employers do not hire people simply because they have experience. They hire people because they have problems that need to be solved. Think about the problems you're consistently solving. For example, improving employee engagement, protecting an organizational reputation, leading complex projects, simplifying technical information, building relationships with senior leaders. Your answer should make it super easy for the interviewer to see how your experience connects to those challenges. Number 3, why this opportunity makes sense now. Your answer needs a destination. You should finish by connecting your career story to the role you're interviewing for. This shows that you're intentional. You're not just looking for any job. You understand why this particular opportunity is the logical next step in your career. I'm going to walk you through a simple framework: present, proof, and purpose. I recommend building your answer around 3 parts. The first part is present. Start with who you are professionally today. And an example of that could be, I'm a communications professional with more than 8 years experience developing integrated communication strategies for complex, highly regulated organizations. This immediately establishes your professional identity and level of experience. Part 2 is proof. Choose 2 or 3 relevant strengths, experiences, or accomplishments. An example of that could be, throughout my career, I've led executive communications, supported large-scale transformation initiatives, and developed stakeholder strategies that improved understanding and engagement. In my current role, I recently led the communications plan for a major organizational change affecting more than 2,000 employees. This gives the interviewer evidence. You are not simply claiming to be strategic, you're showing them where you've applied that strength. And part 3 is purpose. Connect your background to the opportunity. An example of this is, I'm now looking for an opportunity where I can bring the combination of strategic thinking, stakeholder management, and hands-on execution to larger communications mandate, which is what attracted me to this role. See, now the interviewer understands where you've been, what you offer, and why you are sitting in front of them today. I want you to use Carl's framework to strengthen your story. Although your answers should not become a full behavioral interview response, you can use Carl framework to identify the strongest evidence to include. So Carl stands for context, action, results, and learning. So ask yourself, what was happening? What did I personally do? And what changed because of my contribution? What did the experience teach me? You may not include every element in your opening answer, but Carl helps you avoid vague statements. So an example would be, instead of saying, I have strong leadership skills, you might say, I recently brought together communications, operations, and HR leaders to deliver a change initiative across 5 business units, resulting in stronger employee participation and fewer questions during the rollout. That is certainly credible because it includes context, action, and results. So how long should your answer be? I recommend aiming for 60 to 90 seconds. That is usually the sweet spot. Enough time to establish your professional identity, provide evidence, and connect yourself to the role. Anything much shorter can sound vague or under-prepared, and anything significantly longer can feel unfocused. A useful test in this is, could the interviewer repeat your professional story to the hiring manager after your interview? If your answer contains too many jobs, too many details, and disconnected accomplishments, the answer is probably too complicated. Now, this is where I want you to tailor your answer to this question for every interview. You should have a core career story, but you should not deliver exactly the same answer in every interview. Review the job posting and identify the 3 most important responsibilities, the problems this person will likely need you to solve, the competencies repeatedly mentioned, the stakeholders this person will work with, and the outcomes the organization expects. Then decide which parts of your career story are most relevant. You're not changing the truth, you're changing the emphasis. A project manager who emphasizes delivery, risk, and stakeholder alignment. A communication leader may emphasize reputation, messaging, and engagement. And a recent graduate may emphasize transferable skills, curiosity, internship, and relevant projects. A senior executive may emphasize enterprise impact, leadership, and transformation. So let's talk about career changers. Career changers often believe they have to apologize for not having followed a traditional path. Please do not do that. Your job is to build the bridge between what you have done and what you want to do next. So you might say, my background is in operations, where I developed strong experience in project coordination, process improvement, and cross-functional collaboration. Over the past 2 years, I have increasingly focused on change management and employee communications. That experience made me realize that my strongest contribution is helping people understand and adopt change, which is why I'm now pursuing opportunities specifically within change communications. The career change becomes a logical progression rather than an unexplained departure. Now, what about recent graduates? You may think you do not have enough experience to tell a compelling story, but experience does not only come from employment. You can draw from internships, volunteer work, academic projects, student leadership, part-time employment, community involvement, any relevant certifications, and independent learning. The key is to connect those experiences to the employer's needs. An example of this might be, I'm a recent public relations graduate with experience developing social media content, coordinating events, and supporting community engagement through my internship and student leadership work. And in my final semester, I led a communications campaign that increased participation in a campus initiative by 35%. I'm excited to bring that combination of creativity, organization, and audience awareness into my full-time communications role. So what about someone returning after a career gap? You do not need to disclose personal or medical information. In fact, I recommend never disclosing that. Keep the explanation brief, confident, and future focused. So for example, after a career break, you might want to answer, after taking time away from the workforce to manage a personal responsibility, I'm now fully ready to return. During that time, I remained connected to the industry through professional development and networking, and I'm excited to bring my previous experience in stakeholder communications and project leadership into my next role. So the career gap should not become the center of your story. Your value should remain the center of your story. So here are some common mistakes I want you to avoid. Reciting your resume. The interviewer can read your employment history. I want you to add meaning, not repetition. Sometimes you may be tempted to start too far in the past. Unless your first job is highly relevant, you don't need to start there. Speaking negatively about your past employer. Do not use the answer to explain everything that is wrong with your current workplace, please, or sounding overly rehearsed. Prepare the structure and key points, but do not memorize every word. You want to sound confident, not robotic. And ending without connecting to the role you're interviewing for. Do not make the interviewer figure out why your experience is relevant. Make the connection clear. So how do you prepare for this exercise? Before your next interview, answer these 5 questions. How would I describe myself professionally without using my job title? What are the 3 most important problems I know how to solve? Which accomplishment best proves I can solve the problems? What do colleagues or leaders consistently rely on me for? Why does this particular opportunity make sense as my next step? Use your answers to create a 60 to 90 second response. Then record yourself saying it. I want you to listen for unnecessary details, repeated phrases, generic claims, long sentences, missing results, and whether the connection to the role is clear. Do not focus on memorizing the answer. Focus on owning the story. Tell me about yourself is not a request for your entire history. It's an opportunity to position yourself. The strongest candidates do not simply describe where they have worked. They explain who they are, the value they bring, why their experience matters to the organization sitting in front of them. You're not there to prove that you have held a series of jobs. You're there to show that you understand the employer's needs and have a career story that makes you a compelling solution. Your career story should leave the interview thinking, this person understands what we need, and I want to learn more. Thank you for listening today. I would absolutely be thrilled if you liked and shared with someone in your circle that is looking for work. Until next time, make it a great day. Thank you so much for listening to Career Ambitions. If this episode gave you a new perspective, a practical takeaway, or even a little spark of confidence you needed, I would love for you to follow the show and leave a review. And if you're an ambitious corporate professional who's ready to stop guessing and start moving with a clear strategy, I would love to invite you to my masterclass. Inside this masterclass, I teach the exact strategies my clients are using to land their dream jobs. You can learn more about the masterclass in the show notes or at joannesparrow.com. See you in the next episode of Career Ambitions.